And we will try to screw it up less next time, although we can't possibly screw it up as badly as the city is screwing this up.
And
special.
And welcome to a special edition of the This Week in Worcester podcast. I am Tom Marino, editor of This Week in Worcester. This is John Edward Keogh. He is the a contributor to This Week in Worcester. He is the president of Hollywood Film Group. He is the executive producer of Manage A Media. It's like I've never done this before. And we are here for a special edition and reaction to the State of the City address. John was live and present at the JMAC Theater for the city manager's speech. I watched it at home. It didn't really come through on the live stream. The environment that was there that you told me about, besides the city manager pausing several times during his address. But let's talk about the environment a little bit and what it was like there. The content of the speech, starting with kind of a weird video.
Yeah, so there was a strange video that was played at the beginning. Well, first of all, let me set the scene. At the very beginning, walking in, it was full, definitely more full than last year for sure. I would say, maybe 80% capacity for the JMAC. Right, last year was probably only about half. The media contingent was massive this year. There was 3 rows of us, and then I decided to go sit up by the sound guy so I could get like a wider view. And there was a few other media people up there. Sam, our boy Sam Bishop, hanging out up top, and there was a couple other photographers there as well. So it was definitely a bigger crowd than it has been in the past. Fox 25 was there. And some other local television stations. So that was definitely a bigger presence. So they had some cool stuff. They had a young girl from Doherty sing the national anthem. I thought she did a good job. They had Oliver De La Paz do a poem, which was pretty good. And then the mayor got up, and the mayor got up, and I thought it like kind of set the tone for what ended up happening afterwards. He had a quote where he says, we want you to work with us. The people of Worcester, we want you to work with us. And this is my analysis now, right? I can't tell you what the mayor's thinking, but what I generally hear when I hear that is that we know what we're doing and we need you to cooperate. And not work with us doesn't mean that we'll do what you say. It means that the mayor and the city manager want you to do what they say. And so then the mayor introduced a video. And the video was maybe a minute long, and it had a quote from his State of the City address from last year about Worcester being the heart of the Commonwealth, which is interesting, and it is. And then the video played, this like perfect Worcester, right? So based on what that video has, we don't have a winter, because it was definitely all like spring and summer shots. There's no division of any kind.
None.
There's no potholes, and everything's hunky dory. And of course, that's just completely untrue. It's just not the case. And it's not. And again, it's not to say that. Definitely, it was definitely propaganda. It's not to say that no one can have a different opinion. You can have whatever opinion you want, but the reality is that we've been dealing with constant conversation over the past year since his state of the city, which I don't think his last state of the city was true either. This idea that we're booming and thriving, and it's not reflected in reality, right? I thought, real quick, an aside, at the budget meeting on Tuesday, I thought Dr. Matty Castile said something that really struck me, in that, based on the numbers that the city collects, they don't see that the homeless population has increased since last year. But then she said something very interesting, which was, but our data collection tools are insufficient for this. So she used that phrase, insufficient, right? So they don't have the ability to go out and actually talk to people, because no one in the unhoused community wants to talk to them. So there's no trust. So the numbers can't possibly be accurate, right? We have no idea what's going on. But based on the eye test, right? And George and Council Russell brought this up, is that we have an increasing number of homeless in our city and in the country. Of course, this year we have the most ever recorded in our country, right? But according to the city administration, they want to play it as if it's not that bad. So going into the manager's speech, there was a group of protesters, and I thought there was three groups of people, and I sat in the back, so I was able to kind of observe the whole crowd. There were definitely people who were there only to celebrate whatever the city manager said, right? So they were there to just clap on cue, and just everything is good and blah blah blah. So there's that group of people. Then there was some local people who we know, and I'm not going to mention names, because I know that, like, the Telegram, because other people are going to hammer the people that were protesting. So that's not fair. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to feed into that. But there were some people protesting. So those folks were very emotional, and they were rightly emotional. And that's because the primary form of protest was playing the audio of the Eureka Street incident on repeat. In particular, the screams of the teenage daughter. And it was profound. To me, that was the most effective protest I think I've heard in a long time. Every single time Eric mentioned ICE or immigration or anything related to it, they played the screams of that girl. And to me, I don't know how a human being can hear those screams and not be affected. I was affected. It felt emotional to me. And then there was like a third group of people who were just like, aggravated with the protests. Like, I'm here to listen to the city manager, so don't bother me or whatever. So there's those kind of three groups that were there. It was uncomfortable for them. You could tell people aren't used to protest, and they immediately feel turned off. They're looking over, they're talking. It's like someone talking in the back row at church, right? You go to church and someone starts talking in the back row, everybody's like looking around. That's kind of how it was. And so I was watching it. There was a couple of signs in the room of Eric wearing an ICE uniform, which I thought was also effective. They didn't make it to the city stream because that camera was kind of down on the floor, so the person didn't go around. There was multiple people who approached Eric, didn't get really close to him because there was some kind of security team that was like suited up in like business suits, and they had their little FBI walkie-talkies on, that kind of like stood there, and they must have known there would be a protest, because Eric responded the same way every time, which was to just shut down and be quiet. And he just looked at and he kind of stared right at the person that was yelling, and there was multiple people yelling. I thought that the things that the protesters were saying were valid. Especially when he was talking about housing, he repeatedly took credit for affordable housing, and Worcester is booming, and developments are coming online, and used the word affordable probably 10 times, maybe. I mean, we can go back and check the transcript, but at least 10 times, and patted himself on the back for that, took credit for that. He took credit for the city council voting for the LGBTQ sanctuary city item. He took credit for it, which I thought was hilarious. So he took credit for that. They did not mention the ceasefire. They did not mention the Department of Justice report.
They did mention the DOJ report once at the beginning.
Yeah, but like kind of like there was no
No.
analysis. No.
And I mean, we haven't talked about it for what, 6 months now. Why are we going to start now?
Yeah, like locked into the police do a good job, and he had them stand at one point like city employees. Um, and of course, it's just interesting to see. One of the things he, claimed credit for was that those, if it wasn't for those city employees who stepped up for the community, right? So this is interesting that he calls that stepping up for the community, then we wouldn't have our potholes fixed. And I don't know if the city manager knows, but that hasn't happened yet in the city of Worcester. Um, it was it was a a stark line because of course most of us, a lot of us, have lived here in the city the majority of our lives, and one of the things that our city is known for is not fixing the streets and doing a terrible job at that. And it's never really like this is not Eric Batista's fault. Our city sucks at fixing our roads and has for decades. It didn't just start the other day. And so when he said like potholes wouldn't get fixed, my immediate thought is, well, potholes still don't get fixed. So why would you say that? I think the speech was designed to like list accomplishments, and it was disconnected from the reality of our city, which is that there are a lot of people that are upset about a lot of things, and it's not. And of course, you and I get like put in this situation, I guess, where people think we're only amplifying one area of concern, right? But that's because no one else will amplify those areas of concern
Right.
that happen to look like you and me, right? So like if I focus on the DOJ report, or if I focus on the cable thing, it's because the Telegram and Gazette doesn't cover it like that. Not like we have. They don't deep dive. Now, Brad is a good reporter, and I'm not trying to criticize Brad, but it's not heavily critical of the city administration and the city government. It's just, straight reporting facts, and I've taken the time to be heavily critical. And I really saw tonight as an opportunity, and it was a complete swing and a miss. If I was going to make a headline for this speech, it would be city manager state of the city is an abject disaster. Because in all ways, shape, or form, it just was a disaster. Even the response to the protest, right? So JMAC is a private entity, so I guess they could, charge you with trespass and ask you to leave. But instead of doing that, they, the folks that were protesting, there was a couple of people who were doing silent protests, like they had signs up and they just stood the whole time. I thought that was very effective. And there were a couple of people who were saying things, which also is allowed. We live in a free country. There was a couple of people who started to shout, and this little security guys came over there and asked them not to shout, and they basically engaged in a 40-minute conversation with them. So they were just as much a distraction, if you want to call it that, from the speech as the people protesting. The problem is that the city manager stopped talking every time. So the speech was delivered, in my opinion. It just got delivered in with pauses, right? It just got delivered with pauses. So, but again, and then but the content of the speech is really where my focus is, and it's like, how can you use the word affordable when one-bedroom apartments are $1,600? That's not affordable for the median city of what. And he used the median income. Again, you and I have talked about this a bunch of times. For Central Massachusetts, it's the AMI, area median income, and not the city's median income. And this is something that we've gone over.
This is the poorest municipality. I'm sorry, the municipality in the area. So
and
good.
No, you're so right. And not only that, I mean, I think and it's funny because the Worcester Research Bureau did that thing that we covered, I think early last year, about the area median income. Every bordering community is like 40% higher. It's not even like a little bit. It's like 40% higher. So, and then of course it includes other towns around that aren't necessarily direct border communities to Worcester, but it includes that kind of second rung. And then those communities are even significantly higher compared to the city of Worcester. So then when you look at, and I mean, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at you, Hudson, and all those communities, you guys, they're rich compared to us, and so
Yeah.
you cannot compare. And so then he started talking about jobs, that the city's bringing jobs in, and completely avoided the conversation that we've also been covering, which is that most of the new jobs are going to people from outside the city. They're not hiring local people. They just aren't. And the facts, apparently the facts don't matter to the city manager. So he had an emphasis point. He was like about the new Saint Gobain thing and all the different projects they have it's going to basically accumulatively lead to 14,000 new jobs. But what he doesn't say is who's going to get those jobs. And the fact of the matter is that part of the reason that they were so upset about the commuter rail issues, the schedule changing, is because they want people to come in and work, right? They're trying to get people to come to work. That's why Route 9 gets so much focus. That's why 140 gets so much focus. That's why all the commuter roads in the city are like the focus versus the interior roads, which are just destroyed. We were working on a story. We ended up not doing it on Bremer Street, which a local guy, Walter Yarbrough, had brought as a petition to the city about private streets. And we know that these interior private streets, but not just the interior private streets, just go downtown for 5 minutes. Go to Main Street. And I'm not saying that Louis Ojeda hasn't tried to get things filled, because he has. I'm not saying he's not trying, but the fact is the city just doesn't respond. And again, it's just not happening for the centrally located, poorer Black and brown communities in the city of Worcester. And those are just facts at this point. So, I'm done arguing with people. I know I was emotional a little bit on Sunday, but I'm really just going to focus on bringing the facts. The facts is the city does not care about a significant portion of its population. And so when Eric, he said this, Tom, and I quote, he said, the state of Worcester, since his last State of the City address last year, same time last year, has not changed. And we continue to be strong. So the city has not changed at all in the last year. State of the city is and in his mind, it's strong and good. So for all of the folks who feel that it's not strong and good, he's basically not talking to them, right? Like the analysis is pretty clear. Eric Batista, and by extension, the majority of the city council, doesn't care about the people who don't vote. That's it.
Period.
And further, the group of people who do vote, but vote for the non-majority candidates, they don't care about you either. They have no interest in you. It was just a terrible speech. It had nothing of value. He had an opportunity, Tom, to at least say sorry or something, but nothing's ever wrong. No one's ever wrong, and there's no accountability. And then the last thing is striking, and this goes back to Mike O'Brien, Ed Augustus, Eric Batista, which, but at this point now, since Mike O'Brien became city manager in 2004, right? Those three guys were all working for each other at various points have basically been in charge for 20 years, right? So this kind of administration. And we've gone over this multiple times. They love experts, right? They love developers. They love data management. They love internal dialogues, but they do not want to hear from people who are not happy. And at the end, Paul Matthews, who's the Worcester Regional Research Bureau, said that Eric gave a speech as if it was grace under fire. Like,
well,
and
I mean, I appreciate the Research Bureau. I think they do some good work. I certainly learned stuff from stuff they produce. but also keep in mind that they were basically presenting sponsor of this thing, and they are doing the report on what am I looking for? Civilian review boards. So
Yeah.
take that for what it is. It's obvious. What amazes me, and he did the same thing really last year. They were basically the same speech, essentially. I
Same.
mean, different content, but same idea. And that there's no acknowledgement of any of the real problems that we're facing, or any policy prescriptions for them. There's no policy in this speech. None.
Only platitudes. Platitudes only.
Yes. And I mean, for the love of God, our current president, who's I don't want to. I'm trying to be diplomatic here. Who's unorthodox to say the least? He even provides policy prescriptions at State of the Union. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to go down a whole Trump road. I'm just saying, he's obviously unorthodox, and but I mean, even he's got new policy announcements in State of the Union.
Yeah. So, Tom, the thing that's super striking about that is that he didn't even take the time to talk about the Madison issue with Madison Properties, right? Like the idea that there have been some of the developers who have screwed the city over, even though he's made public statements saying that is not good. So it's like you can't even. He didn't even touch on the negative things that he's touched on in public. So
and then some sort of prescription to address them. That's I thought how he's supposed to go.
So my only thought there is, Tom, is the idea was to record this speech and save this speech for posterity. Like it was like this speech is gonna have a profound impact on people for generations beyond. He quoted Martin Luther King. Okay, I've quoted from Dr. King. I'm not saying that I haven't, but listen, when you deploy that as a politician, you're trying to echo something, right? And there's a time and a place for those kind of things. If you think back to the George Floyd protests here in the city of Worcester, I thought Christian King gave a very powerful speech on City Common when we were all in the middle of COVID protocols and we had to stand 6 feet apart. And when we were standing on the names of people of color who've been murdered by the police, right? So we're like standing in those spots, and he quoted Dr. King, and I thought that it was an appropriate use of Dr. King. I don't know that tonight Eric Batista should be using Dr. King to forward his vision and to quote him again, his shared vision of thriving opportunity every day for everybody in the city of Worcester, when that's just not what's happening. It just isn't. Another thing is he took credit for the women's shelter, right? That they opened up, which of course doesn't have enough beds to actually take care of the women that need it. Or the shelter at the RMV, which now is a seasonal shelter apparently, or the fact that we just don't have enough resources. The day center is been the day resource center for people who are unhoused. This is a conversation that predates his employment with the city of Worcester, not just him being an assistant city manager or the city manager, but before he ever got hired. This has been an ongoing conversation. So you can't take credit that we are so close to getting it when it's been this ongoing thing. You have to talk about what people are experiencing. And I just thought it was a wasted opportunity. It really, truly was. And so the other thing is, when you talk about the protests, right? And again, everybody has the right to protest. Eric does not have an opportunity for the public to talk to him. There's no place.
I've said this before. The man has been, he's been there 3 years now? He's been in the job since his interim time?
2 and change or something like that? Yeah, 2 and change.
Yeah, and I mean, the man's never taken a question in public, besides that city council.
I mean, so the most public questioning he's ever taken is from Manny, and when Manny has pressed a little bit at him, he's gotten upset. We've all seen it on Manny's show. He gets he gets aggravated when Manny asks him questions, which is just crazy because Manny's not, I don't know, like think about the the toughest interviewer. He's not Katie Couric going after Sarah Palin. He's he was he's just asking general questions. He's asking questions from the Facebook chat sometimes, and Eric would get upset with those. And I mean, and again, my experience as the producer behind the scenes, I'm like running the camera. I'm watching the whole thing happen. Eric's media guy, Tom Matthews, is standing behind the scenes and he's making faces and he's like getting agitated because, man, he's asking these little things. They don't want to be talked to or asked questions. And so then when the public has a chance to interact with him like they did tonight, of course they're upset. They have every right to be upset because he's never listened to them. And so, there's no opportunity. Like, maybe they build in a Q&A session. Maybe that would have been an effective way. But again, Tom, there's not even he didn't even stop when he heard that girl's screams. The whole room, we were all there. And the people who played the audio of the girl's screams, good for you, because that was a tremendously effective protest. It was tremendously effective. That was an opportunity to say how hard it was or to relate to it or something to connect to it. But it didn't. And for him to say he has the same fear, Mayor Petty said something similar, like he understands the national struggles. No, you don't, because you're using the same tactics. You're just calling them something else, but it's the same exact thing. Less access for the people of the city of Worcester, more walls, more barriers, just consistent denial of people. Great conversation at the budget hearing on Tuesday that can kind of expose this. The DEI chief, right, Kevin Levancy, was talking about how people could file a complaint now to the Human Rights Council. So they're creating a form that you have to fill out to file an anonymous complaint, right? So there's a form that you fill out. So Councilor King asked a great question. So what happens if someone doesn't want to fill out the form and they don't have an answer?
Right.
Because they want you to go through their channels. Everything has to be done their way. So it's never. And so now, is there anybody at the national level that sounds like? Anybody? It sounds very much like Trump. You got to do it through his. So the in the immigration sphere, if you want to self-deport, you got to use the CBP app, right? There's an app that you got to use. You got to download the app. You got to put it on your phone. And you got to follow the forms. And if you don't do it that way, we're coming to get you. It's no options for people. It's just the hammer or you do it our way. And that's what I really feel from the administration. Now, of course, it's not the same. I'm not saying that they're the same as Trump. They're not exactly the same. But the tactics are very similar in that it's just their way or the highway. And so this speech very much reflected that they have this vision. And Mayor Petty mentioned the 5-year plan and Vision Zero and all these other things, which did have some community engagement. People went to those things. But again, I read those plans, Tom, and I read them like they kind of already have what they already have planned, and they're going to just do what they already have planned.
Yeah. I asked when they announced this address last year, so April of last year. I asked the administration if anything was in the works for for a format where the city manager would take questions from members of the media, and was told the manager will be available following the formal address for questions from the media. So I don't know if he did a little test gaggle or something afterward. Maybe he did that today. But I mean, I maybe wrongfully, but I took that as he would take questions from the media after the address on stage, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, how is there no one who thinks about that? Like, if you wanted to diffuse the situation or try to engage with anybody, and I'm not. And by the way, I'm not asking for it to be me, right? Or for it to be Tom.
I know I'm not getting a question, but at least take questions.
But there's not even an opportunity for at least listen. Look at the mayor of Boston. She has a press conference. The biggest city in New England. She has a press conference at least once a week where the press get to ask her questions in a gaggle of reporters, and it's an announced, scheduled thing. And but this is not how it goes in the city of Worcester. In the city of Worcester, it's like we only invite who we want to invite. I made a point to Tom Matthews again. the media guy, that he only invites certain people for the announcement of the budget. The Guardian, the Telegram and Gazette, Spectrum News, and GBH, right? But not me or Tom or Manny or anybody else who would want to go. There's no general call to be able to ask him questions. It's a very it's a very like it's just a closed circle. And again, it just goes, Tom. I don't think he's speaking to the city of Worcester. He's speaking to a very small group of people, and that's what it is. Even and so, Antonio just mentioned this. That there's a petition online on Facebook that's been going around the last couple days, of calling for his removal. I think it has a couple hundred signatures at this point. I don't think they'll ever listen to that. Like, that's they don't care. Even if you got 10,000, because we've actually seen petitions with thousands of people attached to it, and the city just doesn't listen. And so I don't know how to be more effective as a alternate voice, right? So like, it's like, hey, we don't agree with what's happening. Other than, because there's people that disagree, like you know what I mean? Like, that, are against what we say, that are never going to change their mind. They're just never going to change their mind, right? They're never going to be different. It's always going to be, one way, and the police are great, and the city is, Fred says it's only Wednesday. Yeah, it's a special edition, Freddie. Post State of the City. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Victor's needle petition. That's a petition that has direct public impact. This is an issue that has a bunch of sides to it, and so you would want the city council to engage on this issue, right? Like, you would want that to happen, and they've pushed it, punted it down the line to get their budget hearings in. And the budget hearings are super scheduled and very specific about what they want to do and how they're going to deliver it. And it's just very, very, coordinated and all that stuff. And I noticed, again, last night, this is something you've mentioned before. He corrects his staff all the time. All the time. He's always like, when they say something, he's like, yeah, but let me clarify it. Let me clarify it. Let me clarify it. So he's very much in control of everything that's happening. And so it's hard, and I get it, that he thinks that, oh, there's more than just me, but it really looks like it's just him. And this kind of top-down, one-person rule, and it reflects poorly on our community. The Plan E version of government has just been an abject failure for the city of Worcester. It just really has. And I just don't know that, unless you're just one of those diehards who refuse to think about anything else, and you're convinced that another 2 years of Joe Petty, or another 4 years of Joe Petty and Eric Batista till 2030 is a great idea, you're never going to change your mind. But for the other people, I guess you got to really dig in and figure out how to vote in bulk. How do you vote in bulk and really, really?
Wait a minute. How do you get other people to vote? Not vote in bulk. Don't vote more than once.
Yeah. No. But what I mean is like, how do you get another? I mean, I don't know, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 voters to participate, right? You need to go from 20,000 to like 35 to really truly move the needle. Right, like that, and it has to be, the real blow would be if there was like a complete change and 6-7 new people got in, like that would be the only way. You know what I mean? And even then, I'm not 100% sure they would really get the note. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, because I look at the primary and I mean, even just what happened to Ashley Spring, that Stevie Quist was deployed to destroy Ashley Spring and get her off the ballot, and the election commission, pushed her off. I think she probably has a legal path forward, but it has to go to the state thing, and it's going to take forever, right? So
I watched that hearing. She said she moved. She considered herself a resident of Worcester a couple weeks after the election. So. I didn't know this until last night, but I looked it up as well, and the solicitor was right that where you reside, your residency can only be one place. And they outright asked her, when do you, they explained that to her and then asked her, when do you think that you were, um, uh, uh, when do you consider yourself a resident of Worcester? As in you established residency here. And she said a couple of weeks after the election. That's less than a
Okay.
year. Yeah.
So, it's just it just I don't know, it's really interesting to see where the complaint came from.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um, but again, whatever. But for me, like one person who like at least was trying something different or had a different voice, um, they silenced with the rules. And so
yeah. I mean, look, it's,
I would like
you
to
know,
check. I would like to check every single candidate's status. By the way, I think I would like to file a check. I mean, I don't know how to do that with the election commission. I'm gonna have to look into that.
well, I think the deadline's over now because they hold it after the deadline period. But there's an objection period. But
How long does
no,
the period last?
I think they held that meeting after. I'm not sure, but I think that they then hear the objections after the period ends. Um,
Oh, okay. So we
look, if
can't
I mean,
right now.
it's arbitrary. It's an arbitrary deadline, but it is what it is. Had she said, had she moved prior to the election, but was after the registration deadline, that would have been a reasonable reason to vote where she previously lived, right? Because she moved after the registration deadline. That's not what happened, and so I don't really think there's anything untoward there. Um, I think thought the same thing she did, which is it says you have to be a resident for a year. Not it doesn't say you have to establish residency, but that is all. It seems like that's the proper language that's used in the charter. And if you're talking about establishing residency, then it seems like she missed it by a few weeks. Uh, but the whole and why I did the piece I did was because that individual whose name shall you can say it, I don't care, but I'm not going to. That individual was hanging it all on that she voted in another town last year. That doesn't mean anything.
But he's wrong.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. She was a resident here, but didn't change her voter registration, so if she voted there, that's perfectly fine.
Right. Which, by the way, I'm an election inspector for the city, and that happens to me. Usually, I'm at the library spot. That happens to me every single year. Someone comes and they have they've just moved, so they have a bill, like a light bill or something like that, and so we give them a provisional ballot, and then they're able to vote there at that spot. But then the city can reject it depending on the time. You know what I mean? Like the timing of it, it can be rejected, but they get to at least file the vote. And then at the end of the night, we review those votes. And then the clerk and the warden usually pass them on to the city clerk for like a further review. I think that last year, there was like 15 like questionable ballots in the city of Worcester, something like that, where those kind of things, because actually the election system in the city of Worcester is pretty good. I mean, I've worked there now for 6 years, for every election for the last 6 years. And the process for people to be able to vote, the city of Worcester lets everybody come, and you can file at least a provisional ballot. It is separated from the regular ballots, but at least you get to fill out your vote, whether it's counted or not. It depends on whether that bill or that item that you provided is accurate or not, right? So if you have
Yeah,
it's
it
usually
checks out.
like
Yeah.
an electric bill and something that's like a utility. A utility bill is usually what they ask for.
Somebody asked if is that voter fraud if you moved and then voted where you used to live. No, as long as you don't vote twice, you're fine.
Yeah. So the vote wouldn't you couldn't vote in the city. Do you add any extra votes in for who you want? No, I've never done that. I've never added any extra votes. And we're not allowed to talk about who we like, which I think is pretty good. And so the reason why I've been in the library is because I'm an unenrolled voter, and they have to have a Democrat and a Republican usually to make the things balanced. And so there's very few registered Republicans in the city of Worcester. So what they do is they use all of the unenrolled folks to cover that balance. So that's why I've been the inspector at the library location now for 5 years. Before that, I was at the Pleasant Street Towers. So I've been in two different locations.
And if you don't know, unenrolled just means you're not a member of either party,
No, I'm
or
not.
any party for that matter. But
Yeah.
I'm unenrolled as well.
Although I'm
Because
thinking of joining either the Pirate Party or the Pizza Party, which are two of the parties in the state of Massachusetts that are able to be joined. So maybe the Pirate Party or the Pizza Party. I'm thinking about that. Freddie Nathan is going to run. Fred Nathan for mayor. Absolutely. You should run on a ticket with both paw, and then we can handle business in the city of Worcester. I don't know if who is in the comments that is watching this live. Like who is watching this stuff on Facebook? Are you guys, because I'm on YouTube and Twitter. We got a completely different crowd than the Facebook crowd.
Fred Nathan's campaign in 2 years is coming together live in the chat.
That's right. There we go.
So yeah, back to the address. I think it bothers me the most is there's very little acknowledgement of any problems, and there's certainly no policy prescriptions to any of it.
Yeah. And what I would say to the people that watch our show is go watch The Guardian and the Telegram and Gazette and see what they write. And that'll really give you an indication of what the city wants out there. So I guarantee that those articles, and I'm not trying to question those reporters, I'm just saying that the narrative will be very heavily focused on the protests being disruptive and all they'll really make it negative about the protests. You'll probably hear that on Hank Stolz's show probably tomorrow. There'll be that, the callers that'll call in will be really focused on that, and won't be focused on the content of the speech. Because I said that to several of the other reporters. I said, "What'd you think of the speech?" And they were like, "Oh, we couldn't hear it." I was like, "I was able to hear everything because he stopped talking during every single part of the protest." So I don't know what they were, but the group of reporters were pretty upset, by what was happening on the thing. Which to me, that just shows you that they're not real members of the community, mostly because they don't understand frustration, which I think people have every right to be frustrated. On Sunday, I was really, really frustrated on Sunday, as many people mentioned. Yes, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of that. Ben was upset about the protests. And so that's the kind of thing is like, but the speech was terrible. The speech did not
Insane.
reflect reality. And so to me, it was about the speech. And again, I told you the most effective protest I think I've seen in a long time in the city of Worcester, which was the screams of that young girl being played over and over again inside. That was a profound moment. And I thought, if I'm standing up there as Eric and I just mentioned immigration, and then someone plays the screams of that young girl, maybe you stop your prepared speech and you engage with that, because that needs to be engaged with. The people of Worcester need to see that you even acknowledge that as a problem. For example, I mean, the police department just dropped all the charges against the young girl, right? So that was with the recommendation that was made, that she's not going to be charged. I don't know if it's official yet, but I know that was the recommendation. I mean, isn't that something that the mayor and the city manager should engage on? Is that they were just saying they used in their speech in their press releases that two people were arrested. So one of the people that was arrested, all the charges have been dropped, so they can't be as violent a criminal as the police union folks have pointed out, right? Or
Right.
I noticed this online the last couple of days since our show on Sunday. People have stopped saying that Miss De Oliveira was convicted of beating a pregnant woman, because she was never convicted. She hasn't even gone to trial yet. She was just charged on February 3rd. And that's it. It's still an open case. So that's a fact. She wasn't convicted of it. She's not a convicted criminal, which was again something that was mentioned. And the city manager affirmed that in his press release by saying that she beat a pregnant woman. But turns out that woman was living with her on the day of the Eureka Street incident. In fact, was one of the people trapped in the car. So maybe it wasn't as bad of a situation as has been played up by the press releases, indicating that Miss De Oliveira is a violent criminal alien, as you've seen in multiple press releases. Turns out maybe it was a domestic dispute, which again happens, and sometimes it leads to charges. Again, there's a bunch of other things, misinformation that was put out by the city, affirmed by the city manager and by the police department, which is just flat out false. Not just like kind of, but just not true. And so then you see people parroting that online.
Yep.
You see people quoting from the press release of ICE, but not actually knowing anything that they're talking about. And we have the ability to look these things up. In fact, one cool thing about the ICE website is you can go look at somebody's status. So if you want to right now, you can go to ICE's status. You can look at a detainee. You can type in Ferreira de Oliveira. It'll tell you what facility she's in and what she's being charged with. Which, by the way, still, Tom, as of right before we came on here, she still hasn't been charged with there's no lodged deportation order for her.
Yeah.
No lodged deportation. So this entire incident may be a mistake, right? So that means that if that's true, what you saw was revealing by the city that they're not even willing to do their own research. You would think somebody would like try to find that out so they could be on solid ground. But no, they're okay with just releasing press releases without talking about it. And again, this speech did not mention any of that. Now I get it. The Eureka Street incident in their mind is probably just a single thing, right? They think it's like a one-off, and they don't see it as connected to the things that they've been doing as a city administration for years, which is not listening to the people, denying access, and talking over, the rest of us as if we're idiots. Experts must be listened to, and they know what they're doing, and that's just the way it is. And so, to me, that's the problem. There's this disconnect logically.
There's also the police press release of the quote unknown liquid unquote. Now the Mass Live did the story. It's pretty clear in the video, in the body cam videos. They knew exactly what. But saying unknown liquid, it could be acid. It could be could be whatever. It was water.
And then we have a video of an officer sniffing the baby bottle and saying and literally on video saying to Miss Spring, "You threw water on me. You're being charged." So they lied from there forward. Just absolute abject lies. And so I noticed, by the way, that the chief of police was not present at this State of the City. Was not present. I don't know if it was planned or not. I also noticed that Sean Murtha, his media person, was not present, which is not normal because for Ed Augustus's versions of this speech and then Eric's last year, they were present. So that was interesting. The fire chief was there. There was a police presence there, but I didn't see Paul or Sean. And then there was, the 6 officers who came to take out. They came to take out David, they were like staged outside in the like alleyway, kind of a JMac. So they were there waiting to be deployed at some point. So they must have had some headwinds or some information that they thought a protest would happen, or maybe they're just prepping themselves for David all the time. I don't know. I'm sure that'll make David laugh if he, if he hears that they have a squad just for him. But I also thought that, the opportunity to engage with protesters was right there. Like that's a conversation that could be had. Again, there's no chance for them ever to speak to him because he doesn't answer questions.
Right. So that's, I think, where we are.
Yeah.
I don't understand why you do this if you're not going to say anything.
Yeah. Why not? Get into like, what's the point of it? What, like they, by the way, I really want to know, does the JMac get paid for this? I really want to know, or is that given for free? The reason being is that many community groups have tried to access the JMac for rental and have found themselves denied. So I guess I'm going to reach out to Alan Seifert. He's the new head of the Hanover Theater, who has said that they're now one entity. So the JMac and the Hanover Theater are one entity and are all managed by him. And so I want to know, was that free, or did the Worcester Research Bureau pay for that? Because the city is, are we subsidizing that? Like how, like what's happening with those kind of events? There was a lot of production value in this particular meeting. I noticed. Remember last year the sign fell off the podium.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So there definitely was a new sign. It was a different color. It was blue. It was like blue thing. It was pasted on there. It said "State of the City." I actually they have these little booklets here. If anybody wants to see them, little fold out kind of deal. So they spent some money on copy. Nice, heavy duty kind of glossy paper that they used there. And it has the Research Bureau's thing on there. So I don't know if the Research Bureau was involved in that as well. You get this real sense of like slickness, presentation, like they're trying to make a show for somebody. And of course, it looks like the somebodies are that select group of people that applauded for the things that he was looking for applause for. When he says 14,000 jobs, oh yeah, so the JMAC people might be upset about that. There were definitely armed police present. There were armed police from the moment I got there, Tom. So that is a very, if that's true, that's a very interesting thing, because when I got to the door, there was two armed police officers, and then Captain Early was there. And then, as I said, there was 3 police cars that were dealing with a protest that was across the street. So there was a protest on the corner across the street. And there was 3 police cars there, but down the little alleyway where the G, where the light up thing for the G McDonough, there was 3 other police vehicles down there that I observed, and those officers came from those vehicles when they came through the side to basically to take David. And I thought, let me give David credit. I think that he engaged, well, and it maybe the city manager would take it as disruptive, but I thought that all his points were valid, and so you can't really take away from somebody engaging in that way. And it's his right. Would aren't we there? No, the police were inside, actually, Antonio. They were actually I was sitting in the back row, and they were underneath the stage. There was 2 officers underneath the stage to the right. So under the sound guy, kind of behind the curtain, there was 2 officers back there. I don't know if they were armed, but there was definitely 2 officers that were back there the whole time. I walked up that way, and that's where they were kind of hiding out. So there was at least 2 of them. I don't know about the other 6 were in the hallway. Or in the alleyway beside it. I feel like they were there the whole time waiting for something. So
Yeah.
which makes that they had a squad ready. That's the 2 guys that were playing security. I've seen them before at the Hanover Theater. An older guy with white hair, and then a young guy. I've seen them at the Hanover Theater before. They usually are like in the doorway. They had their little. They look like FBI guys with their little like walkie-talkie things. They were engaging with people on a regular basis. I really thought that they were at one point they were really rude to Maria Ravelli, who I thought was making some valid points, and she wasn't doing anything wrong. Like she just was talking, but they were particularly rude to her. I didn't appreciate that. And then they kind of spoke to some other people in different ways. So again, you see that kind of security police approach to women is often very different than how they approach men. So that definitely was clear when they were talking to Maria. And then they put their hands on Wolfpaw at least twice that I saw, that they actually touched Wolfpaw, that I could see. I probably have some pictures. I took some pictures and video of that just in case something went wrong. I wanted to make sure that I documented it for anybody if they got hurt or if there was an incident. I wanted to make sure that was there.
Yeah, so it seems like the interesting part of the story really is the protest, because the speech didn't say much.
Yeah, just wasn't. There was no substance, and again, by putting the quote from last year's speech at the front of the video, there's like an indication that quote from last year has some historic value. And that just means, that makes me think that you're delusional, right? Like you're delusional in that you think that what you're saying has this profound historical impact, and it's going to be registered in history for all time. And I just don't know that's true, because I really think that history is going to look back on this time in our nation and in our world with a heavily critical eye. And see this just complete disconnect from entire communities of people. It doesn't matter if you agree with them or not. You have made the determination that your general policy is to disconnect from people and not listen to people and not engage with them and only engage with experts and only engage with data and only analyze it through one lens. It's not data driven. It really isn't, because if it was data driven, then you would have to deal with the fact that there's disparity. You know what I mean? There's no doubt about that. You acknowledge disparity, but then say your policies are all data driven and say we've made progress. Well, where? Where's the progress?
Where's the data to show us that?
Where's the data to back up the progress? They say progress, but they never provide
Yeah.
that. Just like
You keep going experts. I mean, look, if you have people that are actually experts in their field and they're there to provide you their expertise and not selected because they'll provide the expertise in the way that you want, that's two different things, right? Like, for example, the person that they hired to do the negotiation or whatever it was for Polo Park, I mean, the guy was in the tank. He's the only guy in that field on Earth who agreed with them. That's weaponizing expertise rather than applying it.
Right. Well, so I guess the reason I'm doing this with experts, Tom, is that experts are wrong all the time because they're human, right? There's no such thing
Well, sure.
But when you in city administration presents experts, they present experts as if we should just trust them, universally just trust the decisions that we're having our experts make. And that's just not the case in reality in human history, right? There's just it's not to say there's no expert that I think Dr. Maddie Castile knows what she's talking about most of the time. But I also think that some of the things that she's saying is driven by a policy preference. And those policy preferences means that you only get partial use of her expertise, right? You generally only get a piece of it. So in this case, when you only get a piece of her expertise, and then that policy turns out to be wrong, like the city's response to the unhoused issue for the past 20 years, right? It's not like it just started the other day. The response is consistently wrong. So now, but trust in Dr. Castile. It's almost like they're trying to set her up to blame her for the failures.
Well,
Does that make
maybe.
sense?
Yeah, maybe. But I think it's more, what she's going to be enabled or allowed to say in public has to fit. Like I would hope at least that behind closed doors that she is giving her robust analysis, and then he makes a decision, and then that's the decision of the administration of what she's a part of. That's just kind of teamwork, and I'm fine with that. But it's like I'm going to use the Paul Park analogy again. The guy they brought in for that, I mean, they paid him a boatload of money, and suddenly he was saying things that were opposite of things that he had said in the past.
Right.
And that's a whole different. That now you're not getting expertise, right? That's not his, view from his educated and experience or whatever. I mean, it's kind of the same as the other side of that, though, is who do you think you should listen to on education matters, Dr. Monterez or me, Dr. Monterez?
Yeah, see, here's the thing with Dr. Monterez. She had a chance, at least in the school committee field, to show her qualifications in real time. We actually got to watch her engage with issues, and we have now, if you look at there's little real data. Like, we've been hearing things about different data sets that have been coming out, but for example, the English reading levels for fourth graders, right? So in the time since she's been superintendent till now, there's been an increased ability for fourth graders to read English. That's a fact. Those are the results that we have. So that's something I can act like dig my teeth in. There's no evaluation tool like that for the city managers platforms. There's really no way to look at that, right? So there's no way to compare to see what it is. Another great example, when Kevin Levancy was talking on Tuesday night about the complaints that people can file, he brought up this number of 48 complaints. But those were all internal complaints filed by other employees in the city against other employees in the city. He didn't have a specific number about external complaints, which is very weird. And the Human Rights Commission has been asking for those numbers now for like a year, even prior to Kevin Levancy, right? So there's no tracking. How is that not just in a spreadsheet? To me, that means they don't want to talk about what those numbers look like. They don't want to talk about what those folks are complaining about. And it points to the chief of police who says they want to vet who's complaining, right? So internally, because they're city employees, there's processes that are required because of unions and contracts and the state law, right? So if a city employee says, so and so is sexually harassing me, there are rules they have to follow, right? But if a community member files a complaint with the Human Rights Commission through an online form, an anonymous form, or the hotline, there's no guarantee that will be handled the same way, with the same level of gravity that they apply to the employee standard, right? So then they just don't say the numbers. So they use expertise in one zone, and then when it comes to the zone where they're going to be challenged, it all of a sudden becomes, we're still working on it, and we're hoping to have a process in place. So that was repeatedly expressed during the budget hearing on Tuesday. But also, it goes back to something you and I have covered kind of relentlessly now for a couple of years, which is that when the city councilors ask for a report, the city manager can give whatever report he wants whenever he wants.
There's thousands of them in the queue, right? I mean, this goes to a whole other issue of they have no right to the data, they have no real oversight powers, they can't subpoena data or information, documents, people, so it's pointless. Having a city council, I mean, the city council is generally pointless.
So the traffic, when they were talking about the traffic and parking, right? They were talking about the speed humps. We've all heard about the speed humps, speed humps, speed humps, speed humps. And Candy actually asked the question. She said, "So, how many speed humps are in the queue?" Right? And so the parking guy, I forget his name, doesn't matter, said that there was 48 permanent humps and there was like 50 something temporary humps that were going to go up this year. And so then Candy said, well, that's not what I asked. She said, how many are totally in the queue? Like, how many are like backlogged where we don't know when or anything like that? And the answer was, we don't know. It was just no answer to it. And then Eric jumped in and was like, we're working on the data portal to get it to that kind of question. Similar question. Jenny Pasillo asked the chief information officer why the city's website is so much user unfriendly compared to what it was just a couple weeks ago, specifically with the search function. And he said, well, we're going through a 3-stage process, and during that process, some things are going to change, and so it's going to look different. So then Jenny asked a very pointed question. I thought it was a very good question from her, which is, so while you're doing the process, the search function can't be as good as it used to be? And the answer was, and Eric physically shook his head, And then the guy answered, no, because we have an issue with a vendor and we've been trying to get another vendor for 2 years and da-da-da-da-da. And then, of course, then it gets lost because George Russell starts complaining about the paper agendas. And there's just these other pet issues that get kind of caught up in the reality of it is, and that is that the city is okay with the city website being less accessible for people while they figure out who they're paying to make it the way they want it to be. So people's needs less important than the future functionality of the website.
Well, now, the interesting thing about that is, so part of that is, which I'm actually excited about, is that they're switching the agenda management system. So hopefully, I'm hoping it will have an API so you can just pull data from it. That would be great. So then we could actually do like vote analysis and whatnot. So that's part of the problem. But the interesting thing that came out in that conversation was that the system doesn't fit our government style because nobody does this, so it wasn't built for that.
Exactly. There's no Plan E governments. There's no such thing as a manager-driven, top-down system, except for very few communities. And so this gets back to the city of Worcester was designed so people kind of think they have influence over policy, but that's not what happens, right?
Yeah,
It's not what
it's a corporate system. It's what it is.
it's complete nonsense. Now, it's not to say, by the way, if we do somehow get the city charter opened and we have actual review, right? And it leads to us leaving Plan E and going to a strong mayor, strong council kind of system, the one that Tom has proposed, right? Where there's actual engagement, and we kind of lose the city management structure, or the city manager becomes more of a like a lesser position than it is now. Then what you would have is potential for bad mayors, right? You still have potential for someone to win the election that's not good, right? That still becomes it. But at least the people got to vote for that person. In this
And then
case,
then it's our fault.
right. So then it's our fault, right? So in this case, though, the city manager really has no real form of accountability other than the city council can fire him basically whenever they want. But if you look at the contract that he got, if they do fire him today, he still gets that $1 million. So, like, again, we talked about the Babe Ruth contract. Great contract, great negotiation by him because he got exactly what he wanted, which is that if he gets fired at any time, he gets an automatic year added on, right? So he's going to end up with I think it's 1.2 million is the total over the course of 3 years, no matter what happens. And so I didn't vote for that. Did you, Tom?
No, that's over 4. I think it's because it's only
No,
310.
it's 3 years, and he has 1 year of severance pay if he's fired during the 3 years. So the equivalent of 1 year
But
is
he
what the
yeah, but it's not an add-on here. He would get a year from the day he's fired. Um, yeah,
he gets paid for 1 year afterwards. So he gets a year
right,
off,
right,
paid 300 grand. Not bad work if you can get it.
right. And just for the record, just because I'm quite involved in this topic, and just don't you want to make sure that my position is clear. I haven't advocated for any type of system. I just said that the thing needs to change because this doesn't work. Uh,
My bad. My bad for putting on Tom Plan A, government versus Plan
um, so that's an interesting question. I'm going to put that on the screen. Uh, so I think that really the fatal flaw with this system is that he's their guy, and
A.
so
Yeah,
if he fails, it's a reflection on them failing, and so they can't have that.
right. That he has to win for them to win,
Right. And
which
so
means they can never be truly critical of him. They can't.
right.
They can't.
And then they're actually criticizing themselves in a way. And you should be able to deal with that, right? Like, okay, well, we're in a not. I don't want to make it about him, but any city manager, right? You're okay. We're here, and it's not working out. This person needs to go, but politically, that's not good for them. Then,
And
I mean, if you're watching city council at all this year, it's very obvious we're in an election year
yeah,
because
so
things change.
they have to dance around things though too. So it's very interesting. So Candy Merrill Carlson's proposal about taxing the endowments of the local private universities. If you go back and watch that hearing, and you will hear her say something very interesting when she starts. She says, "I know that the city manager has been working to negotiate pilot payments behind the scenes." So Eric, you're not doing anything wrong. But, and then goes into the proposal. So it's like, you got to make a statement that says that he's doing good. And then you can talk about the policy procedure on the other side. But what it reveals in that particular thing is that he hasn't negotiated deals with every college, and that his predecessor really didn't do his job in negotiating those payments because he was there much longer, right? So we've had two managers who just haven't done this as pilot programs have become more popular in New England, right? That's been a new thing. That wasn't always the case. We just didn't have that kind of thing. And of course, the Providence deal happened right before Eric was confirmed as the city manager, right? It was like right in that, when he was the acting city manager, it was right in that time period. So, but in the time since, he hasn't been able to get a better deal. So if his job is chief negotiator, Candy's proposal indicates that he's not doing that very well, right? Same thing with the Madison Properties deal. If his job is chief negotiator, he didn't do it very well with that developer. Now, it doesn't mean that he didn't do anything good. No one's saying that. We're not trying to like, oh, everything's bad. What we are saying though is that if you analyze it, there are things wrong and there are failures that have definitely taken place at the hands of this administration. But this administration has never admitted that it's wrong. It always places the blame somewhere else.
There was something rollout of Mill Street. He said that the rollout communication was bad.
Yeah. So the bike lane thing, they said they were sorry for, but the police officers potentially raping multiple people, no, we're not going to deal with that at all.
No. And so put this up as well as a follow-up to Sarah. Why not politics? That's the simple answer. Politics.
Yeah, politics. So again, and I've written this a couple times now, and I'll keep talking about it. I've heard Eric say, and he said it on the city council floor, he's not a politician. He said that. It's like a common refrain. He manages. He's a manager. That's what he does. The problem is that he acts like a politician. He talks like a politician. So
I think it in a way, and I don't know, I'm not going to kind of speculate on the motivation, but he did follow when he got that job. He surrounded himself with operations people, and that was a good look. But I don't know how it played out effectively. That there's really no political mind in there, and I think he thinks he gets the politics, and I'm not sure he does. And I think that's a problem. That's better.
And again, and so this is something I've talked about with the media squad there. I don't think they do either. And I think that they do. And I think they think they're making an effective outreach to the community. But then, what's the thing that they do, the little video series, The Buzz? No one watches it. You can go look at the views yourself. When the city does its own streams, if you go look at the numbers, it does its own streams versus when Manny does a stream, or when or even when David or when Worcester Sucks does their streams. The views are clearly not to the city's communication platforms, they're to alternate platforms, right? That's what it is. Those are just absolute facts. You can't deal with it. I don't know what to tell you. Even tonight, when I was doing Manny J Media tonight, so I had Manny's phone. Manny has his own. Where did I put it? It's somewhere back there. It's charging. But Manny's got a big, super Samsung Galaxy phone that we use to live stream. So he gave it to me because he wasn't coming tonight because he wasn't feeling well. Yesterday was his birthday. All right. So I grabbed the phone and I share the city stream to Manny J Media, just like I share this show to Manny J Media, right? And immediately I got like 15 comments from people that were like, "Thanks, Manny, for sharing the stream." Because people are engaging with that platform, not the city's direct platform. Now, once people are in the chat on the city thing, they're talking back and forth in the chat, and there was definitely some engagement in there. But that's the thing, is like the public statements aren't reaching the people that they think. It reaches the people they want it to reach, like the people who read the Telegram and Gazette daily still, which is a very small group of people. And that seems to be what they think is effective communication. They share data with the Telegram and Gazette. There's been more than one occasion where the Telegram and Gazette has gotten things under lock and key before any other media person. Even in the case of the DEI chief, the DEI chief's announcement back in October was given to the Telegram and Gazette first, and then Tom and I and Manny and everybody else got an email 6 minutes after the Telegram and Gazette had released its article.
No, it wasn't. I think I got it like 2 minutes before they published.
Right, but they had it earlier than you did.
And they wrote like a 500 or 600 word piece, and
they got a picture. They got a headshot, right? So then
to the city.
And again, I'm not saying they have to give it to me or to you, but they should give it to everybody the same, right? So then Manny gets those emails, those press releases, and he got it at the same time you did. So the one minority-owned platform, if it's for the DEI chief, they gave it to the legacy white newspaper first, which just goes to show you they have no tonality radar. There's no thought process behind what they're saying, how another person would perceive this. Of course, the people in Indian Lake are loving it. Sure, their lives are great up there. West Side is the best side, right? They're doing it. They're living it up. But the rest of the people in the city of Worcester that don't engage with those platforms because they just don't believe or trust in the city government of Worcester, and they haven't for decades.
Yep.
They haven't for decades.
And I hate to tell you, but a key component of that, over the decades has been the police department.
Yeah, I mean, it's really
the absolute unwillingness to rein it in. Yeah.
And then just the offense level, right? So, again, the officers see me. They know that you and I have been talking about the DOJ report for a while, and they have an attitude. They're upset, and they have this constant refrain. It's all the time. Every time I see an officer, they say the same thing to me. You guys think all cops are bad, or you hate the police. No, we do not.
Yeah,
No,
I mean, it doesn't matter what you say, because I have said it 500,000 times, good cops are great, bad cops shouldn't be cops.
I'm for good cops.
How is that hating on police?
By the way, so interestingly enough, if you go, the Department of Justice released a press release on yesterday, saying that it's stopping the consent decrees for several police departments around the country. So Minnesota, Tennessee, there was a bunch of police departments that were under consent decree. A lot of those originated during the summer of COVID protests, right? So a lot of those, like Minneapolis, Derek Chauvin, like all those kind of things, happen. And in the statement, they said, the vast majority of officers will do the right thing, but when there's bad cops, we're going to prosecute, including criminal prosecution. You know what city was not released from its investigation still?
Well, but that's on the consent decree.
Want to guess who wasn't let go?
Hold on, though. They aren't under the consent decree, so it probably wouldn't apply to them.
No, but so there was several of them that were under the same process as us, like the back and forth, haven't come up with a conclusion yet, that were also released from those things. As we said, we've pointed this out. For some reason, Worcester still hasn't been publicly released from that investigation. And my question to people, now maybe it's resources based, could be that, but my question to people is, why would they let the one that came after them out? Right? Why wouldn't they? If there was nothing to it, why wouldn't this administration, who's clearly super pro police and pro America and yada yada yada, which is fine, do what you want, why wouldn't they release them from this investigation unless there was something to it? That's my thought. There's something to it, and there's something somewhere that needs to be looked at, and it just hasn't been looked at yet. And I think that there's something more to come. And if something more, I hate to think about it in terms of negativity, but when it comes to anything, what's the worst thing that could happen? An officer is proven to be a rapist, right? And if that happens, all of those statements from all of the union chiefs and the police department and the chief and Eric and the mayor, all of it, it's wrecked. The city is wrecked. The city is annihilated in that situation. It would be horrible, horrible. I don't want that to happen. I don't, but I think it might. And if it does, they've set themselves up for the worst possible result. And that's bad management of the communications department. And that's really on the communications team. But Eric has taken personal responsibility now multiple times that he says no press release goes out of his office without what, Tom?
His personal approval.
So it's at his feet. He's taking it on. He's taking it on himself, man. So even the police one, the police, them posting the longest press release of all time after the Eureka, that still it just boggles my mind how long that.
It's absolutely hysterical to me that what are we? There's 2 or 3 more budget meetings, right? And there's a
Yeah.
week off in between both. I think there's 2 more. There's a week off in between both. So we're talking about well into June, if
Yeah,
not
June
July,
10th.
before we see that the report allegedly coming from the police department on the things that they agree with. I mean, it will be at least 6 months since this report came out.
Right.
It's already been 6 months. It'll be at least 7 months.
Which, by the way, I think again is planned, Tom, because I think if
No,
you
6 months.
if you take a broad view of Worcester politics, just take a broad view over the last, let's do 20 years. So let's just do Mike O'Brien, city manager till right now, right? So the last 20 years of city government, councilors, mayors, all the people that have been there, right? They take the exact same approach, which is let it blow over, people will forget about it, and we'll be right back to being in business. And that's the approach they've taken with this. But at some point, the scandal is so big, you can't do that. You have to address it directly, which means you have to take. Anybody know the word? Starts with an R, ends with a Y. It's not raspberry. You got to take responsibility. You got to take responsibility. Although I remember I used to get raspberries. You know what I mean? Back in the day. You got to take responsibility.
And that goes right to how the city manager handled, Eureka Street tonight, where he mentioned it, and when he saw it, he thought about his family, and then he moved on.
Yeah. By the way, the issue, the little part of speech about his family, that was nice. That's cool. Like, that's fine. Put that in your speech. That's cool to acknowledge your partner, to talk about your family. But to use it as this is it, and now I'm going to tell you all the things that we've done good, all the accomplishments of the city. And he said that. He said, we're going to talk about all the accomplishments. So what are they? Because, I mean, really think about it. Like, what have they done right?
Well, not that that's not a valid point, but I mean, even if there are accomplishments, why are we talking about things that we're done with? Why aren't we talking about what we're going to do next?
Yeah, why isn't there a particular? Well, of course, what they do is they point to these big action plans. They point to the Worcester Now Next. They put the Vision Zero. They point to those things. The Chandler Street redesign, all those things.
No plan. No plan for the police department, though.
They don't want to talk about that, Tom. They don't want to talk about it. Because, by the way, they're hoping. I hope you guys all realize this. I hope everybody in the city realizes this. They are hoping. No doubt about it. This is not the opinion of This Week in Worcester. This is a John Edward Keogh theory alone. Just me, not Tom, just John. They're hoping that this all blows over and they can rebuild the police station. I have heard it from very, very high sources that they want a new building. They want a new fancy state-of-the-art police headquarters. That is a fact. That is an internal thing. And they're trying to weather this storm to get to that point, knowing how much it's going to cost.
Yep.
And let me tell you,
box, get your criminals out of there, and then we'll talk about it.
Right.
Get out of civil service, and then we can talk about it.
By the way, that building is horrible. It's a horrible police station. It's located poorly. That's a great point, Leanne. Traffic enforcement should be a separate department. But they want so badly, Tom. They want all the newest technology. They want drones, and they want scooters, and they want hoverboards. They want Back to the Future Police Department is what they want, but they can't take accountability for what they need to take accountability for. There's been no real acknowledgement of the trouble. Again, Chief Saucier, in the biggest ever taking responsibility a few weeks back, gave no specifics.
Yep.
No specifics.
Nope. I can't talk about if there was any discipline for this person because they have a right to invite them and then let's talk about it. They're not going to show up, so then when they don't show up, we can talk about it. Let's go.
Yeah.
But they don't want to talk about anything specific.
Well, because those officers don't want to be in public when he's talking about those cases either. Those officers don't want to be there. They don't at all.
They put the videos on the screen right there in City Council. Let's face reality. But we're not going to do that because that doesn't make PR sense.
My last thought is this. It's interesting that the state of the city is scheduled in the middle of the budget hearings right? And the same thing as last year, same exact timing as last year. And you just have to really think about that the budget that we are seeing is preordained. There is no chance for the city council in reality to do anything but affirm what this city manager wants in the budget. There is no chance. There's very little ability. They can't take away anything specific, as Tom has pointed out in, I don't know, 15 articles. They can only take away the total value, and then that requires, if I understand it correctly, Tom, that requires 8 votes. Is that right?
So, no, I don't think so. But it seems like it was said last year that they can take out line items. So there's so much weird misinformation, like not almost say misinformation. There's so much like conflicting information because there was something said during budget last year. I think Council Russell was asking questions about this, and they can actually strike line items.
So if they can strike a line item, do you think a single line item is going to be struck this year?
No. They didn't even ask a question about the city manager's budget, which is almost 3 times his budget. His office, just the city manager's office, 15 people. His budget is almost 3 times as much as the city council's office, which is 15 people.
And
14 people.
So if you just look at if you go back and watch yesterday's budget thing, just look at the number on health insurance alone for the city manager's staff. It increases this year 15%. 15%.
Yeah, that's everywhere though.
Sure. So I'm not saying it isn't, but is there no engagement with these insurance companies on any potential way to save money anywhere? There's no chance for that. What are the conversations like?
Employees, for God's sake, you think you'd have some negotiating power?
No, but my question to the city councilors, and we have city councilors who watch our show religiously and then complain to us about what we say. Does any city councilor have it in them to ask how that's negotiated at the budget hearing itself? No, but what are we going to hear about, Tom? The snow budget. We're going to hear about the snow plows. We're going to hear about the bumps, and we're going to hear about things that don't matter. Now, the police budget, maybe there'll be some pushback, maybe, but probably not, because it's all bought into the chief's data-oriented software plan. So we're going to spend a bunch of money there. Those are the kind of things that are going to happen. Discretionary money, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, so, and meanwhile, I just want to point out that the Bureau of Professional Standards is listed in the org chart, but there's no breakout of its budget.
Right, we have no idea how much money. Right. And an interesting exchange between Councilor Hajiaj and City Solicitor Kalkunas was about the lawsuits, the outside counsel, right? Not the lawsuit payments now, just the outside counsel that has been retained by the city of Worcester, and the DOJ guy for a DOJ report that has apparently no validity according to the city.
But they paid him $300,000.
But just this year alone, $122,000. Just this year alone. So where's the work product for that? What are they doing? Why are they being paid $122,000? What are they doing for that $122,000? Who are they talking to? Are they writing memos? Are they writing memos, Tom?
Yeah, lying to us. Which, ironically, in the Castle Rizzuti case, he's beat up in his own church in front of his kids in 2019 by a Worcester police officer for no reason whatsoever. That the attorney that they're using, who's a new attorney, I don't think they've ever used him before, which is weird. Why would you switch law firms? Seems like you might learn something soon. The administration was believing its own lies because they get their lawyer in court arguing that the report was rushed out, which is just not true. It's just not true at all. And they know it.
I'm with you. And so that's really what it comes down to is how do you expect us to listen to tonight's speech and take it seriously even if we are in the opinion minority, let's say we're all the people who agree with us, Tom, are the vocal, but we're in the minority. Let's just say that we are. They're making accusations towards us, but there's no evidence to refute the things that we're saying. So if we do say something, they just say it's an agenda, right? That was the new thing a couple weeks ago. Media agenda. Okay. It's misinformation, disinformation. We're lying. By the way, one of my predictions came true. I don't know if anybody saw that Charter Communications and Cox are merging. I am continuously batting 1,000 on the cable thing, just telling you, I told you that was going to happen. And what does that mean? Less competition and no reason for Charter to lower their prices. And the city manager is still apparently earnestly negotiating with that company. Which, by the way, if you just want to talk to some of the other cities and towns in Massachusetts about how they feel about Cox Communications, you will see some very bitter city administrators across the state of Massachusetts, because they're the same, right? They're the same kind of thing, which is why their visions aligned. As to quote the city manager Batista, they share a shared vision, Tom, a shared vision of making as much money as possible off of the backs of consumers here in the United States of America. And again, I told you this was going to happen when I was on the cable committee. I said this was going to happen, and I've been telling you this whole time, not because I'm making it up or I have like a psychic power. I literally read the shareholder reports from those companies, and I've gone to city council and read them, to them, and they just don't believe me. But I'm right over and over again, because I actually do research that you would expect a city administration and government to do, but that's not what we have. And that's just in the field of cable, which, by the way, is an obsolete technology that's going away. Right, it's going away.
And I mean, but from a city council standpoint, you're part time. You have no help. You have 3 people for 10 people.
Sure.
And they're not researchers. If you go to a real city like the city of Boston, their city's much bigger, obviously, like 2.5-ish times bigger. But and they also have a bigger budget per capita. Anyway you slice it, they have a bigger budget. Per capita even is a bigger budget. But they have over 100 employees for their city council, because their city council actually does stuff.
Yeah, but what if we had when I again?
So if you want to just real quick, if you wanted to, so you wanted to have like an equivalent, right? It would probably be about 30 employees, 35 employees in Worcester, and they have 3 for their city council. Yeah. Well, actually 5. 2 are the mayors only, and then 3 for the other 10. Right. So that's how much you're represented in the city.
You wrote an article last year, we talked about it on the show. What if they just had 10? What if they just had 5 more, 4 staffers and a lawyer? Just 10. They voted against it. They voted against adding a lawyer. They stopped. By the way, I did see it in the budget. It's there again. Are they going to vote against the lawyers, the staffing again? The city council? Like, what are they going to do? It's in there. It's like it's written in the same way that it was last year. And my question is that they desperately need an attorney that's separate from the city manager's office. Desperately. Are they going to do it?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because the majority of the council wants to be in sync, if you will. I would say the puppet of, but let's be polite and say in sync with the manager. They don't want their own legal strategy. They don't want their own strategies. They don't want their own perspective. They want to be completely aligned with him. And then you add on top of that they have no resources to form their own, to do their own research. They have no lawyer to have their own legal strategy. All these things they don't have. They don't have the ability to do much but agree with him, which is how the system was designed.
It is. So, it's a special edition. We're not going to stretch it to 2 hours tonight.
No,
but
I think we've done a half an hour though. But you said charter, and then somebody said charter in the chat, and
yeah, well. But thank you everybody for tuning in. I recommend you get engaged. You talk to your local city councilor. Go to these meetings. Learn. Come to the budget meetings. Come sit next to me as I'm listening to the budget stuff, and engage with them because there's just no check on them unless it's us, and the way we got to do it is we got to talk more, we got to engage more. I think again, the protesters, I think what they were doing was fair. They have every right to protest, and I thought that one of the most powerful moments I think I've had in a long time was hearing that little girl, the audio of her screams repeatedly played when he was talking about immigration was a profound moment, and I hope he heard. I really do hope he heard, but I don't think he did, and I'm concerned that no one's listening in that.
Yeah,
in that
I might have heard it, but I don't know if he's listening.
Yeah.
Um.
So do we do a midweek favorite things?
Oh, you got something?
Do we okay, here's
Okay,
a great
wait a minute, I have to do my intro. It is time for John's favorite part of the show.
No. This is, again, everybody who's in the chat knows that Tom consistently, the one part of his life that he does misinformation is about this part of the show. Tom, otherwise he's very fact-based guy, but he does misinformation on this part of the show, which is by far the world's favorite part of This Week in Worcester podcast, which is when I asked Tom a question about his favorite things. And you know what? This one's an easy setup because we're doing it on an off day, special edition, right? Wednesday. And the question then comes easily to mind, which is, Tom, what's your favorite day of the week?
They're all the same day.
Everybody in the chat, what's your favorite day?
It's the Life is Catalog Day.
You don't have a favorite day?
Oh, I guess I still work on the weekends. I don't do a lot of writing on the weekends, but I'm still digging at stuff. So it's like it's all the same day. Every day's a work day.
Everybody in the chat, is he missing something? He's missing something clearly. We all know what day it is. It's the day of the This Week in Worcester podcast. It's Sunday, Tom. How do you not get that? Oh my goodness, that should be your favorite day, is when you get to spend an hour or two yelling and flustered about the city of Worcester with me, the big fuzzball over here.
It's been a few weeks since I really lost my mind. We have to come up with something. Right? So I'm feeling out of character.
You can yell on Sunday.
And then I'll just leave you with I heard a rumor of some grumblings and some potential of maybe a new show. So stay tuned for that.
Oh yeah, maybe we might be adding a show to the This Week in Worcester repertoire. So we
just
can't
a
tell
rumor.
you who.
Just a rumor.
But there's someone maybe watching right now that might be part of it.
Ooh.
Oh, that's gonna.
All right.
It's not. Who do we want to disappoint? Who should I say? Who it isn't?
No.
Not Fred Nathan. Fred, it's not you.
We still love you, Fred.
But Fred
always love cookies. Sorry.
Fred Nathan
Thank
for
you.
life, baby.
Thank you to Fred Nathan and to everybody that joined us, everybody that commented, asked questions, etc., etc. We will try to screw it up less on Sunday. Until then, have a great rest of the week.